American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to the graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly tellustrate video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with Coach Paint today.
What time is it? Game time! It's gonna be special. They gonna talk about this forever.
Welcome to American Football Stories.
Puts his head down, crashes and spins, and dives. Touchdown!
Bringing together the many perspectives that make up college football in the NFL.
Football is one of the greatest sports ever invented.
From players and coaches.
Believe, baby, believe, baby.
Hey, we playing to win right here, fellas.
To the front office and scouts.
The public is finally beginning to catch up, but they don't even know half the truth.
Us against the world, let's get it.
Your hosts, Robert Parker and Nick Knudsen, bring you American Football Stories.
Welcome to the American Football Stories podcast brought to you by Coach Paint. Today is May 2nd, 2021. My name is Nick Knudsen and my co-host is Robert Parker. We're joined today by Jeremy Kohlman from the Extra Point podcast. Fellas, we're on to the AFC West. It's been a long day. We're getting through it, though. We're enjoying the hell out of it, too, as well. And we're going to start with the Denver Broncos. First-round pick, they went with Patrick Surtain, cornerback out of Alabama. They followed up in round 2 with Javonte Williams, running back out of North Carolina, very physical runner, solid player. Should do well in Denver, I feel like. Quinn Meinerz, everyone fell in love with from the Pro Bowl from Wisconsin Whitewater, or not the Pro Bowl, I'm sorry, the Senior Bowl from Wisconsin Whitewater. Baron Browning gets to learn a little bit in Denver. He's a solid prospect, a lot of athleticism there, but gets to be coached up a little bit there. Another third-round pick. 2 fifth-round picks, safety Caden Stearns out of Texas. Solid choice there. Jamar Johnson, we know Jeremy's going to have some thoughts on the Indiana safety. And Seth Williams from Auburn in the 6th round at receiver. He finished up pretty strong, in my opinion. Kerry Vincent, Jr. out of LSU. 2 edge rushers, Jonathan Cooper out of Ohio State, Marquise Spencer out of Mississippi State. Those are the type of risk I love to see late in the draft. There is not a single pick in this draft class that I don't like. I like every single pick in this Broncos draft class. And if I wasn't Mr. Anti-A+, I would give it here. This is almost a perfect draft class for me. I know the one knock I could have, I know Lions fans might be thinking, why aren't you crushing Denver for not taking Justin Fields? I could, but he's not going to come back and play them twice a year. And they seem to have their direction with Teddy Bridgewater this year. And it's like Jeremy said, there's plenty of quarterbacks next year, right? So we'll give the Broncos more of a break on that. But it's more of that Justin Fields was in Chicago that Detroit should be ashamed of itself. But Pat Surtain, not a bad pick there for Denver. I'm going to give this Broncos class an A because there's really not a pick I don't like. Williams I love. Meinerz I love. Browning's great. Stearns, Johnson, Williams, they all can contribute. All these players can contribute. And even in the 7th round, Jonathan Cooper was a phenomenal player for Ohio State. Spencer was a great edge rusher at Mississippi State. Like, he definitely could develop a little bit, but that's why he's in the 7th round. So I love this draft class, guys. I'm giving this one an A.
Yeah, I'd really have to agree. I mean, Denver they stayed patient. They didn't panic. They didn't, try to take a quarterback they didn't like. They were, sounded like they were very much sold on solidifying the secondary, to help this team out. Patrick Surtain does that. He's very polished, good speed, good hands, does a lot of good things well. Might not ever be an all-pro, but you don't have to be an all-pro to be a good corner in this league. That's such the misconception, in round 1. It's like, you don't have to go all-pro to be a great NFL player. Really like Javonte Williams. He was the back, if the Steelers were going to trade down, that I really liked. Really like his first step. He can really get from 0 to 60 quickly. But then at the same time, he doesn't go down at first contact. He's 5'10", 225 pounds. I mean, that's a big guy when you think about it. My only thing here was I wasn't sure about the fit. Like, what does it say about Melvin Gordon? They must really not like Melvin Gordon, or something that's like a second running back when you have other needs. Great value here, though. I mean, he's easily the third best back in this draft, if you ask me. So if they want to move on from Gordon, I think Gordon's in the last year of his deal. So it does make more sense if Gordon's not going to be there long term. Quinn Miners, guy that was a guard that had good tape, where people liked him, to completely rework his body this offseason, to come in and impress like he did at center in the Senior Bowl. Just wow. The Watt brothers trained with him. They said he's the real deal. Kudos to Denver for getting him with the third compensation pick in this draft. I mean, that's a steal. If he can be a real deal center. Honestly, I thought Baron Browning at the end of day 2 was an absolute steal too. I know there's a little bit of a, misconception there about, what position does he fit exactly? It's like, figure it out. He's a great talent. He's going to be a really good inside linebacker. He started really doing well in coverage at the end of the year. He can double as a pass rusher. Just go get me talented guys. That he fits under that. Then come back in rounds 5, grab 2 safeties. Caden Stearns, a guy who's very instinctive, heady, tested well. And then to get another guy in Jamar Johnson, kind of in that same mold. He's a little taller, not quite as fast, but another guy who's instinctive. He had more interceptions than Stearns, but it's like very nice little compliments both of those guys have, they can back up. What's his name? Justin Simmons. Really good safety, Justin Simmons. Thank you. Justin Simmons there. So it's like that gives him some really nice depth there, some playmakers, in case he gets injured or something. Seth Williams, man, talk about just a Venus flytrap when the ball's in the air. He just goes up and just swallows the thing whole. He might not impress anyone with his super deep speed, but with Cortland Sutton kind of being on the injury bug, you need that big physical wide receiver, and they just didn't really have that. They had drafted some speed guys, Jerry Judy's there, KJ Hamlin's there. Really nice compliment to all those guys in getting Seth Williams. Just really nice, strong physical guy, could be a red zone threat. Really like that. And grab Kerry Vincent in the 7th round is kind of just ridiculous when you consider how athletic he is. Yeah, he's not the most refined, but I mean, those are the type of guys you love to take chances on. You just love to take chances on. Not a big fan of John Cooper, to be honest, but I mean, you're talking round 7 here. He's played defensive end. He can bend. So there are some things to like there, on day 7 when you're looking for a pass rusher. And then Marquis Spencer could be a real intriguing one because he's 6'4", 300 pounds, and kind of played all over the line at Ole Miss. Mississippi State. He just real intriguing guy, and Denver's had some luck developing some of these just really stout athletic defensive linemen. Really fantastic draft. I'm going to go with an A-.
A-. All right, Rob.
Yeah, I'm not too far behind from you guys. I'm going to give it a B+. And for all the reasons that you guys said, like Patrick Surtain, I think he's a starter at the corner position day 1. And you have help on the back end for him in Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons. So if he does have a little early struggles, at least, they can kind of make it up for him on the back end. And once again, I really love the Javonte Williams pick. Just like you said, Jeremy, he's probably the 3rd best running back, in this draft class behind Najee Harris and Travis Etienne. But once again, Melvin Gordon is on alert. And that's a Melvin Gordon pick saying, hey, if you don't get it together, you don't have a breakout year, we have this rookie coming in on a rookie deal. We got him for cheap. So I love the Javonte Williams pick. And the Quinn Miners, man, he turned himself into a football player, and he's going to have a long career on the offensive line, whether he's playing guard, whether he's playing center, whatever position you put him at. He's just a tough-nosed kid that he's going to fire off the ball, and he's going to maul people. And I tell you what, playing in Denver, playing in that high altitude, he's going to have the physicality. He's going to have the stamina to bring it every single play. So I love that pick. And then Baron Browning, we know Von Miller is getting up there in age. So maybe that can be a great transitional piece to kind of have Von Miller coaching him along, whether he's going to be that pass rusher on the end, or if you want to stand him up and have him, rolling around from sideline to sideline. And Caden Stearns, I really thought Caden Stearns has first round potential, but one thing that, affect Caden Stearns is the injury bug. He's one of those guys that, wasn't all the way healthy in Texas. You saw the potential, and by him being injured, that kind of messed up his tackling, his shoulder, and everything like that. So if he can stay healthy, I think Caden Stearns is a great pick to have a depth play behind Justin Simmons. And then Seth Williams, you mentioned it, Jeremy. Cortland Sutton, he's definitely a big time receiver. He's not the fastest, and I think Seth Williams is pretty much the same guys, but a great complementary piece when you have Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler working in the slot. And I'm right there with you, Nick. I'm not gonna beat the Denver Broncos for not drafting Justin Fields, because at the end of the day, you have Teddy Bridgewater on your roster.
Andrew Luck. I forgot to say Drew Luck too.
I don't think Denver is so much sold on Drew Lock, and I'm not sold on Drew Lock.
They wouldn't bring Teddy in if they were.
But yeah, but you have Teddy Bridgewater. If you ask me, I know, Jared Goff went to a Super Bowl, but if you ask me to say, hey, who do I want to have at quarterback, Jared Goff or Teddy Bridgewater, I'm going to go with Teddy Bridgewater. And I think Teddy Bridgewater can kind of come in and get the ball to, the Jerry Judys, the KJ Hamlers, the Courtney Sullivan, and not forget Noah Fant. Oh, my God. So this offense, it could become electric if you have Seth Williams come into his own with Courtland Sutton staying healthy, with Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, and Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon in the backfield. Everyone's kind of, pushing the offensive envelope because you're in the same division as the Chargers and Kansas City. So you got to keep up with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And I think the Denver Broncos did a good job in this particular draft of doing that. So I'm going to give them a B+. I love this draft for the Denver Broncos.
Well, and then there's the rumors of the Aaron Rodgers potentially joining the club. I mean,
why he would want to go to the AFC West is beyond me.
Oh, I agree, but I mean, that would be a place where there's a lot of weapons for him.
Yeah,
that's what he wants.
I think one thing to look at too is if you're Denver. I mean, yeah, certainly if that happened, they're one of the candidates there for sure. But the difference too between the Denver and Detroit scenario, where I'm not killing Denver as much, it's not just that Fields ended up in Chicago and is going to crush Detroit for the rest of his career. It's that Denver, if they need to fill in some pieces, but you got the Chargers weren't a great team last year. I know everybody's excited about Herbert, but they weren't a great team. And their top players seem to have injury issues time and time again with the Chargers, like just bad luck or whatever. They're just not, but their top guys are not consistent. The Raiders are all over the place. We don't know what they're going to, they beat the Chiefs 1 week and then they almost lose to the Jets. We don't know what the Raiders are. My point is with Denver with 7 playoff spots, if you get halfway competent quarterback play, you might be a wild card team this year. So you might not whereas with Detroit, I said rebuild from scratch. You take that quarterback because you're rebuilding the whole thing from scratch. I don't think it's a rebuild from scratch from Denver, even though they are playing well below Denver Bronco. Like if you're a Bronco fan, this is not what you expect of your team. You expect to be in the playoffs every single year. They're playing below their own standard, but you're close to. You might be the second best team in the AFC West, even. And with this draft class, you definitely got better. But Broncos have had, if they could stay a little healthier, they'll have some better luck too this year. Kansas City, limited picks. You end up with only 6 picks, but they bring in Orlando Brown, which I'm going to count as a part of this class. So your first round pick, you bring in Orlando Brown, and then you draft Nick Bolton from Missouri. Love that pick. Great player, all SEC linebacker out of Mizzou. Creed Humphrey bounced back this year after what many saw as a down sophomore season in 2019 at center. Left-handed center too, by the way. Edge rusher Joshua Kando out of Florida State. Comes in the 4th round, 5th round. Noah Gray out of Duke, big receiving tight end. A nice compliment to Travis Kelce. Cornell Powell, who I absolutely love out of Clemson, was a downfield threat. It's what a fit for this offense. I love the Cornell Powell pick here. And grabbing Trey Smith in the 6th round, big fella, like didn't quite ever live up to that 5-star tackle hype, but really kind of he was a guy that got his career together in this latter half of it. And really, I thought he lived up to that, to maybe he wasn't that superstar guy, but like he salvaged his career nicely at the end and by moving inside with Tennessee, and just excellent guard, part of a total revamped offensive line here. I gotta give the Chiefs an A- for their effort, because with limited resources, I feel like they just every pick, the Kane Dow pick in the 4th round is a little bit of a risk for me. But I like the rest. The rest of them makes sense. The rest of the moves make sense. You make your offensive line deeper. You get a really solid linebacker that's going to play and be an impact player immediately. And then Gray and Cornell Powell have a chance to be contributors on offense. Maybe not this year, but within the next couple of years, if some of these guys walk away for bigger money.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they got 2 first-rounders in the 2nd round. In all honesty, I mean, Nick Bolton would have been like a top 10 overall pick 15 years ago, with how he likes to play the game. He's ridiculously fast, lays the lumber when he gets the opportunity. You just got to love that, and he's better.
And they took Willie Gay last year, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, now you've got two athletic freaks at linebacker with Willie Gay, who was 6'3", 240 and ran a 4.5. And now you just draft Nick Bolton, who's, a little lighter, and also ran a 4.5 or whatever.
I think they watched the Bucks to see how those Bucks teams covered them in the Super Bowl with those linebackers and probably took some notes. Right. What do you think?
But yeah, for sure. But I mean, and then to get Creed Humphrey all the way in the bottom of the 2nd round, a lot of people's knocks on him was that, his anchor wasn't that good. But, I was reading or listening to an interview the other day, in Oklahoma didn't want him to be any more than 290 based on all the polling they do. That's a big deal when you consider, well, no wonder he doesn't have much of an anchor. They're asking him to pull all the time. And it's like, he was still, a top rated center. So it's like, he's going to put on 25 pounds here pretty easily, probably, and be able to anchor. And it's like, I feel like their first 2 picks were home run picks. They really needed a linebacker to make plays. They needed a future center. I know they signed Austin Blythe in free agency, but I mean, Creed Humphrey could have been a day 1 starter if they don't get Austin Blythe. Well, like you said, Joshua Kane-Doe is a little bit of a project. He's got the size, the speed, he's got everything you want. He struggles against the run. That's kind of his one knock. But I mean, he's got the, attributes to be a really good player, so it's a nice defensive end developmental guy on day 3. Noah Gray, he's a good receiving tight end. And honestly, that's what they ask their tight ends to do. They don't really, Travis Kelce does not do a whole lot of blocking, when at the end of the day, Noah Gray is not going to be asked to block a whole lot, unless they're in jumbo packages. Cornell Powell, really like him. Clemson just produces receivers like crazy. He might not be as shifty, as like an Amari Rodgers or some of the other guys that have come through, but he's a tall receiver. He's got good hands. He can get down the field, and in the vertical offense that we talked about, it fits very well.
Robinson's job.
Right. Yeah. It fits very well, with what, he does, with what DeMarcus Robinson does. And then to get a guy like Trey Smith in round 6, I know there's some medical concerns there, which is why he dropped that far. But I mean, he's been playing in the SEC no problem for the last 2 or 3 years. It's the best division in college football. It's not like a huge jump for him to the NFL because he plays these guys day in, day out. He could end up being a starter, all the way in round 6. He's a high character guy, works his butt off. I mean, he's come back from his, I think it's a heart condition is what kind of limited him. But, I mean, I really like what the Chiefs did here. Going to give him a solid B+. Just lack of picks kind of prevent this, draft from being great. But actually, I'm going to take that back completely, because if we're considering trades here, they ended up getting a Pro Bowl left tackle when they just released a left tackle. So never mind. This is a because they ended up getting Orlando Brown right before the draft. I completely dropped the ball on that. So this is definitely an A, considering everything they were to accomplish in the draft and then get a left tackle before the draft, still on his rookie deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah, factor in Orlando Brown there, Rob.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I think this is an A-minus draft for me with the Kansas City Chiefs. Just factoring in Orlando Brown, and we saw Kansas City the last time we saw him in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes was running for his life, so they got Orlando Brown, a Pro Bowl type caliber guard. I mean, offensive tackle to shore up that offensive line, and then you get a player like Creed Humphreys who probably can come in and, just like you said, Jeremy, put on a little bit more weight and be that center, take over that center position for the future to pair up with Patrick Mahomes and Nick Bolton. They need linebacker help in Kansas City, and I think Nick Bolton is a guy that can come in and play right away. So I love the Nick Bolton pick, and then with the Cornell Powell pick, the rich just get richer, and it just seems like Patrick Mahomes has another weapon that he can use. And to think about Cornell Powell, I know he was a late bloomer coming along in Clemson, but that was just because of the talent that they had at the receiver position. He really couldn't get on the field. I mean, T. Higgins, you had Amari Rogers, what's his name? He's slipping my mind.
Justin Ross.
Justin Ross.
He got hurt. So the injury with Justin Ross actually, helped Cornell Powell get on the field. So, you got to see his talent and what he can do. I know it was a small sample size, but Patrick Mahomes, if you can run routes and you can catch and you can do the run after the catch, Patrick Mahomes is going to find you. So I think this is a great fit for Cornell Powell. And then to end up with Trey Smith, it was talk, 5-star prospect coming out. Him and Alex Leatherwood was kind of that 1A, 1B type at the offensive tackle position. I know he's been battling, the blood clots, which has kind of been, messing up with the heart issues and everything like that. So I know it's a risky pick, but you get him in the 6th round. So not too much a risk in that, because if he can kind of clear up the blood clots and the medical conditions that he's been having, I think he's right there on the offensive line with Creed Humphreys moving forward. So with that being said, they solidified the offensive line in this draft with the draft pick they picked up with Orlando Brown. So I think, it's an A-minus, because not only did they address their needs, but they got better with this draft as well.
So did we all give the Chiefs and the Bucks A's? So the 2 Super Bowl teams just crushed the draft.
You're the best. You're the best.
I have a feeling I know what game we're going to be watching next February, guys. it's looking like another repeat. Hey, let's go out to Vegas. The Raiders. Alex Leatherwood with the 1st round pick at number 17, tackle out of Alabama. Trevon Morwig, the safety out of TCU in the 2nd round. Now listen, if I told you Morwig was the 17th pick and the Leatherwood pick was at 43, the 2nd round pick, you guys would have no problem with that, right? Morwig first, yeah. So yeah. I'm saying, the fact is, I think if you look at it that way, even though the Leatherwood was a stretch at 17, if you got him, Morwig would not have been, and you got 2 guys that you could have gotten at 17 in the first 2 rounds. I'm not docking points on that. Malcolm Kuntz from Buffalo at the edge rusher at pick 79 in the 3rd round, back-to-back picks. Divine Diablo, which Diablo is a great last name on a Raiders jersey. I can't, that's got to be like an all-time seller for the Raiders. I feel like going there in round 3 as well. Round 4, they took another safety, Tyree Gillespie from Missouri. More secondary help, Nate Hobbs from Illinois, and they finished off in the 7th round with Jimmy Morrissey from Pittsburgh, who I was listening to the radio on the way home last night, and Jim Nagy was just raving about this guy out of Pitt. So Senior Bowl guy out of Pitt. But I'm going to slice this in half here, and from Diablo up, Diablo, Kuntz, Morwig, Leatherwood, I like the draft. I like it. It's a good draft. I think it's a bunch of risk after that. Leatherwood was the guy that slipped a little bit, but it's hard to ignore it's just the sheer size of the man. And it's not like he had a bad career at Alabama. He wasn't quite, I don't think he quite lived up to all the hype, but was a very good player still. Morwig, though, is the gem here in Diablo in the 3rd round. Love those 2. Kuntz is a freak athlete too. I think he could be a solid contributor on some level right away. So I think the Raiders got 4 really good football players up front, and then 3 Will C's on the back end. And for that reason, I'm going to go with a B, because I like the 4 better than I like the risk. So I'm going to give this one a B. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a little bit lower. I'm gonna go with a C plus in this, and I understand what you're saying in regards to Alex Leatherwood and Trayvon Moore have been flipped with those particular picks. But once again, you pick Alex Leatherwood at the 17th overall pick, and Christian Darrisaw falls all the way down to the Minnesota Vikings. So I really think that those two are going to be linked together because I think just didn't see Christian Darrisaw falling that far, and I thought the Vegas Raiders, could have picked Christian Darrisaw over Alex Leatherwood because I had him projected over Alex Leatherwood. Not saying that Alex Leatherwood is a bad prospect. I just had him mocked in the late first round, early second. But once again, tomato. If that's your guy, you go with them. And then Trevor Moray, I had him, going off the board as one of my first safeties along with Richie Grant. But I know he has a lingering back issue. So if that kind of, halters him a little bit further, maybe we're looking at a pick at the number 43 spot where you could have got another safety with a clean medical. So with that being said, with your first two picks, they have some questionable, marks surrounding them. So I'm going to give it a B minus, but they did address needs that they needed, which is the offensive line and the secondary. So just for that, I'm going to give them a B minus.
Wait, B minus or C plus? You said C plus at first.
Oh, C plus. Excuse me. C plus.
C plus. Okay.
Yep.
Jeremy.
So I actually have no issues with Leatherwood going at 17 because he's not coming in to play left tackle. They already have Colton Miller to play left tackle. He's coming in to play guard. And this is about a scheme fit here. They thought Leatherwood was the best scheme fit for what they want to run on offense. I have no issue with them taking Leatherwood this early. I really don't.
Yeah.
They
need O-line help too.
Right. I mean, because they shipped Rodney Hudson off. They shipped Gabe Jackson off. He's going to be able to come in and play for Gabe Jackson's job day one.
Mm-hmm.
And then they ended up signing Nick Martin. So this offensive line has actually kind of solved itself here, believe it or not. You would have never thought that with the way they started the offseason. But I like Leatherwood at that pick. Trayvon Morig is an absolute steal in round two. I mean, I had him going to the Jaguars at 25, over ETN.
I liked it.
I mean, Morig has been my number one rated safety before the season even started. So, I mean, just to get him here at this spot, that's ludicrously awesome. Lack of a better word. I didn't really like the Malcolm Kuntz pick. I felt there were like a lot of other defensive end types here. And it's like they already have three defensive ends, Cleveland Farrell, Max Crosby, the other kid they just drafted whose name's escaping me right now. So I didn't really see the need for like a defensive end here right away because he's not going to play off-ball linebacker in their system either. He's a defensive end / 3-4 outside linebacker. He's a pass rusher. So didn't really see the need, and I felt like it was a reach here anyway. Really like Divine Diablo. I know they listed him as a safety. I guarantee you he comes in at linebacker. I think he's going to come in as a souped-up, super athletic linebacker who can roll them all over the field, make plays, defend, guys down the seam, your Travis Kelce's, that type of deal, because he has that safety background. Tyree Gillespie, another safety. That's another reason why I think Diablo is going to move to linebacker. They drafted two other safeties.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell? But Gillespie is a very athletic kid, can play free safety, play strong, has good speed, can do a little bit of everything, get his hands on balls, can really come down and play the run, which is something I know they really like their safeties to do. They just re-signed Carl Joseph because even though he's not a big playmaker on the ball, he can come down and make that sure tackle. Nate Hobbs is kind of a throwaway to me. I didn't really see the talent there as a guy to be drafted, more of a UDFA guy to me. Love the Jimmy Morrissey pick though. He's got more talent than people give him credit for. He moves well, already uses his hands really well. And that's what I really like about him. It's like that when you get a guy that just knows what he's doing already, that's a big asset coming in the NFL. And he's not no pressure to start either with the Nick Martin signing. So, I mean, nice little developmental piece there. With it all being said and done, I'm going to give it a solid B minus, though. It isn't like they blew this draft out of the water. but I do think they got a lot of good players.
Some good
that'll fit what they do.
And by the way, Kuntz is going to back up Yannick Ngakoue.
There's the other guy.
Free agent signing.
There you go. Thank you.
I went to ourlads.com to look that one up.
Shout out, Dan.
Yeah. LA Chargers, guys, probably the beneficiary of one of the bigger drops on day one, even though it was only to pick 13, but this guy was all over the top 10 in a lot of picks. Rashawn Slater, tackle from Northwestern. They get Asante Samuel Jr. in the second round at FSU. Man, my buddy made a bet that he's an FSU guy. He swore he'd go in the first round. He still owes me $20. I got to follow up on that one. Josh Palmer, receiver out of Tennessee in the third. It's just super athletic, dude. I like this guy. A lot of good stuff on him coming out at the end of the season here. Trey McKitty, another big tight end, FSU transfer to Georgia. When are these guys, offensive guys, going to learn to stop transferring to Georgia? I just you can help your stock going somewhere else. Come on. Edge, Chris Rump out of Duke going in the fourth round. Fifth round, Brandon Jameis out of Nebraska. Nick Niemann, a guy that Dan Shanka called out on our podcast in the NFL draft preview. Loves his play at linebacker from Iowa. Larry Roundtree, the second out of Missouri. If you didn't watch a lot of Missouri football last year, this guy's a very solid runner. And Mark Webb, another corner out of Georgia. A lot of Georgia defense getting drafted here. Webb's another one. So, hey, overall, this team needs a lot of help across the board. Having issues staying healthy across the board too. I think they addressed a lot of their needs though. I'm very high on the Rashawn Slater pick. That's going to be a day one impact. Asante Samuel Jr. a little undersized, but super athletic. Father played in the NFL. Obviously, you talk about those NFL bloodlines. That's pretty solid. And get a little help with McKitty and Palmer up front, and Roundtree will be a nice fill in the back there. But Neiman might be the steal of the draft there in the sixth pick. Nick Neiman, the linebacker out of Iowa, might be one of their better picks of the draft. So, all in all, it's a good class overall. I think it's nothing that I'm thinking is going to transform this franchise. You like to see that you got your franchise quarterback is going to be protected well, but I think it's just a building class. It's a building block class. And overall, I'm going to give it a B. It doesn't do much for me overall.
Yeah, I'm going to actually go a little further down. I'm going to give it like a C+. I like Rashawn Slater. I really do. I really felt like Christian Darrisaw should have been the pick here, actually, contrary to a lot of people's thoughts. I really felt like they had a chance to go out and get an elite left tackle. And I am a firm believer that Rashawn Slater is sliding inside at the next level because he's only 6'3" and just does not have the length you want to left tackle. There's nothing wrong with him. I think you're getting a, future Pro Bowler at guard, but just when you have left tackles like that on the board, it's just a hard sell for me to take a guard over what could be a very good left tackle too. But I like Rashawn Slater, the player, outstanding player. He'll be very good. Love of the Asante Samuel pick. I think he's going to be better than his dad was in the league, to be honest. He's very competitive, gets his hands on balls. Thought it was a little early for Josh Palmer, even though I like what he brings to the table. He's one of the few receivers that has that outside size this year. You did not get a lot of outside like receivers that were like 6'2" or taller, and he kind of fits that bill of where he fits that, but then also does all these other little things well. So I understand probably why they took him here, because he's a well-rounded player. Probably a few other guys I might have taken ahead of him. It's probably just me being nitpicking here. Trey McKitty, I thought this was a clear reach. He's an okay blocker. He's not super fast. He has good hands. I just don't see him ever being like a mismatch. I know they had desperately needed a tight end, though, because with Hunter Henry moving on to New England, and I don't think they really signed anyone. I could be wrong. Or no, that's not right. Cook is out there now. The longtime Saint is out there. Jared Cook is out there. So he won't be asked to probably produce right away, but, I mean, he'll be in there blocking pretty quickly. Chris Rump the second, really like him as a football player. He has got to get bigger, though. He's very quick, has a nice first step, but he has just got to get bigger because he's not going to hold up against the run at his current size. He's like, soaking wet. He's 245. So he's going to have to bulk up there. Brendan Hymas from Nebraska. That's a nice find on day three. I think he can play right tackle in the league. He's not a left tackle, but I definitely think he can play right tackle. So that's really nice insurance on day 5 for a guy who I think can come in and start right away. Nick Neiman, very good linebacker. Just, that traditional Iowa linebacker that's well coached, can do about anything you ask. You don't want him in coverage all that much, but he can do the job if needed. Larry Roundtree, man, I am totally with you on Larry Roundtree. If he is what made Missouri football fun to watch. I mean, he is what made that offense go. He just doesn't wow you in anything, but does everything just really well. He did not outstanding speed.
Measurables weren't great, right? Yeah, most of his measurables weren't great. That's why he fell.
Right. He's not like some great athletic talent, but he is just super productive, that football player you want. We've said it multiple times on these episodes. He's just a football player that's going to make your team. He's going to make your team better. And then Mark Webb out of Georgia, there was a lot of, hype regarding him that he could actually be better than, I think the guy who got drafted earlier than him was DJ Daniels. Another cornerback from Georgia. They were saying Mark Webb.
Daniel signed as a free agent in Jacksonville.
Okay, all right. Well, so not too far ahead of him then, as far as But so that's saying something though, that Daniels went to the Senior Bowl, had a decent week, and Mark Webb still gets drafted over you. So that just kind of speaks to the level of football player Mark Webb is. Well-rounded, can come down and play the slot. So very good overall class, but I'm sticking with a C+ just because I don't see any super wow factors here outside of Rashawn Slater and Asante Samuel. Like, you've got a bunch of guys you hope that develop into just solid players in this draft. You don't have that all-star factor, kind of like you said, Nick, in an earlier episode.
Los Angeles Chargers, Rob.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit more generous than you guys. I'm actually going to give it an A-. And, sometimes we kind of overthink the draft process and we kind of look for, those playmakers and we draft on potential. But I just think it's a solid draft, up and down the board, starting with Rashawn Slater. I know your knock on Rashawn Slater for a little bit, Jeremy, might not be his size for the tackle position, but I think it's a solid pick wherever the Chargers want to play him, whether it's going to be tackle, guard. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler no matter what position you put him in. And then you go with Asante Samuel Jr. I know he has a slight frame and he's kind of undersized, but at the end of the day, he has that NFL pedigree. He's instinctive. He's a competitor. So I think that's a piece that they can kind of throw in right away to the fire. And then you go with Josh Palmer. I think Josh Palmer is a great receiver. He was just unfortunately, he was just in a bad situation with a bad quarterback. So he didn't get to, use everything in the toolbox that he possessed. But I think he had a solid, week down in the Senior Bowl. And then you're working with Keenan Allen, probably one of the best route runners in the NFL. With his ability, I think, he can kind of bloom and blossom into that receiver that's going to be, someone to reckon with, years going down the line. And then, Mike Williams, and it just seems not only with the defense side of the ball, but it seems like this offense always have injury problems. So Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and then you go to the defense side of the ball, Derwin James, Bosa, Melvin Ingram. So it just seems like, the injury bug always hits them. And then you get a offensive guard like Brandon Hymas out of Nebraska, which I think could probably be, a steal of the draft in a sense. And then Chris Rumph the second, sitting behind, Bosa and Melvin Ingram and those guys to kind of learn from them. And then we already talked about Larry Roundtree, what he did in Missouri. So I really think this is just a solid draft. Maybe no superstars with the wow factor, but just from top to bottom, just a solid draft, picking up what they needed, and also players that can come in and play right away, whether it's Pro Bowl, whether it's, all pro, maybe not so much, but just solid players that's just going to contribute day one. So I really like this, Chargers draft. So I'm gonna give it an A-.
Yeah, as much as you want to find the superstars and everything in every draft, they come along so often. So it's like, I really do think that you got your quarterback and you need a few I just call this a building block class. You just need a few building blocks like this. Keep going. Hopefully some of those like guys that could go either way end up swinging the right way. And then you got yourself a ball club in a couple of years here. So, hey, that's our look at the AFC West. Thanks for tuning in for the NFL draft analysis with American Football Stories. We'll send this out with a word from our sponsor, Coach Paint.
American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to the graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly telestrate video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with Coach Paint today.
Thank you for listening to American Football Stories podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, American Football Stories. We are working to grow our network on YouTube and would love to have you subscribe. You can find us also on Apple Podcasts, on Twitter at American FB Story, and on our website, AmericanFootballStories.com. I am Robert Parker. My co-host is Nick Knudsen. This has been another episode of American Football Stories.